Good evening, keepers. There's a certain order to things, though it rarely presents itself all at once. Not in a way that can be easily followed, not in a way that feels intentional at first. My name is not important. You may simply call me the host. What unfolds tonight is not a sequence. It only appears that way when observed from a distance. Up close, it behaves differently. Moments repeat without announcing themselves. Details return without explanation. And certain elements, once introduced, have a tendency to remain in motion long after they should have settled. Individually, these things all feel manageable, understandable, easily dismissed. Together, they begin to suggest something else. Not intention, not quite, but arrangement. These stories are not here to entertain you. They are here to familiarize you, to position your attention, so that when something begins to repeat itself beyond this room, you recognize it for what it is. Because recognition is rarely immediate. By the time it arrives, pattern has already taken hold. So remain attentive, not to what is obvious, but to what persists. This is where it begins. Boston, Massachusetts, January 15th, 1919. It was an unseasonably warm afternoon that had settled over the city with a quiet, convincing comfort. Windows rested half open. Coats were reconsidered, and the air itself seemed to loosen in a usual winter, unseasonable grip. It was the kind of warmth that invited small allowances, subtle relaxations, the kind that let things expand unnoticed. Even steel. On Commercial Street stood a tank, immense, industrial, and impeccably trusted. 50 feet tall and swollen with more than 2 million gallons of molasses shipped up from the Caribbean. It loomed with a presence both practical and imposing. It had grown before, it had leaked before. Men had gathered beneath its shadow and assured one another that everything was sound. Steel was modern, steel was reliable, steel did not fail. Inside a modest kitchen, not far from the waterfront, Miss Eleanor Price moved through her afternoon with the careful cadence of habit. Her floors were finished, her counters were cleaned, her ingredients sealed and set aside with quiet precision. Routine to her was not merely preference, it was a kind of prayer, disciplined preservation of order against the world's tendency towards disaster. The morning paper lay folded beside the bread box. Weeks earlier, it had mentioned the tank in passing. Small leaks, minor complaints, promised repairs. The sort of problem that men addressed with confident voices and dismissive hands. Handled. She placed a pot of water on the stove and turned the flame just high enough to begin its work. Outside, a low metallic murmur rolled through the neighborhood, subtle enough to be mistaken for industry, for movement, for the ordinary sounds of a working city. She paused. She listened. Nothing followed. Boston was always making noise. Ships sailing in their slips. Horses striking stone. Machinery murmuring its endless labor. She wiped her hands against her apron and dismissed it with the ease of someone accustomed to the background disturbances. But the air was drifting through the window and it carried something unfamiliar. Sweetness. Not the gentle scent of baking, but the distant trace of confection. It was something heavier, something thicker. It clung to the breath, it lingered in your lungs. It felt almost textured, as though the atmosphere itself had been stirred and left to settle improperly. The glass in the window, it gave a faint, persistent hum. Not a rattle, it was not a tremor. Something steadier, something sustained. Across the street, Tommy Callahan walked with his skates slung over one shoulder, his coat absent by choice rather than oversight. He liked the defiance of it, the quiet proof that he could endure more than the weather required. The rink would be soft today. He would have to press harder, carve deeper, leave sharper lines behind him. He passed the tank, as he always did. It loomed. Its steel ribs stretched tight around its swollen body, its surface darkened by slow weeping seams that never seemed quite dried. In warmer weather, it seemed to sweat, expanding, contracting, and shifting with a rhythm that felt almost biological, like it was breathing. Tommy raised his glove and struck the side of it. The sound that answered was hollow. It was heavy, delayed. He grinned. "Wake up!" From somewhere high above him, there came a sharp, sudden crack. Not loud, but wrong. He looked up. A seam along the tank's surface, it shimmered faintly. and from it thin threads of molasses began to slip through, slow, deliberate, and unnervingly steady. Dark veins tracing paths where no movement should exist, spreading with a quiet insistence that resisted urgency. Then, stillness. Tommy adjusted the strap of his shoulder and continued on his way, the moment already slipping from his attention as easily as it existed. Behind him, a rivet had freed itself with a small metallic report. He did not hear it strike the ground, but something in the air had shifted, as if pressure had been released from a clenched, unseen jaw. Down along the harbor, Samuel Hoyle guided a suspended crate above the dock. His hands steady, but his eyes always aware of what hung above him. He did not trust weight that could fall. He did not trust systems that relied on assurances rather than inspection. Chains groaned and timber swayed, and men nearby spoke with the casual confidence of those who had been told what to believe. Steel was stronger than brick, more obedient than wood, more permanent than doubt. Gull cried overhead, and then came a sound that did not belong to wind or water or work. It was a rupture. Metal giving way, not with a single break, but with a tearing release, an unraveling force that seemed to split the afternoon itself. Samuel turned. At first, it did not make sense. There was movement where no movement should be. A rising shape where nothing should rise. It was a color that caught the winter wind and held it in a way that felt almost intentional. Amber was rolling, advancing. The roar followed, not the crash of water, not the scatter of debris. Something heavier, something denser, carrying the weight in a way that sound itself struggled to contain. The ground beneath him trembled. Men began to shout, though no words held together long enough to mean anything. Samuel stepped down from the crate, his boots meeting the earth just as the shape revealed itself fully. It was a wall, 30 feet high. It was thick, surging. The sunlight struck it, and for one impossible, suspended second, it looked almost beautiful. Eleanor lifted her pot from the stove, just as the floor shifted beneath her feet. The motion was subtle at first, then incorrect in a way that no explanation could immediately satisfy. Tommy heard screaming before he understood its source, the sound arriving ahead of comprehension like a warning that had already come too late. Samuel just dropped his hook and ran. Windows burst outward before the wave ever even reached them, glass shattering in anticipation rather than impact. Horses reared against their harnesses, eyes wide with a terror that needed no translation. Bricks split, timber cracked, the air itself thickened into something suffocating, saturated with a sweetness so dense it burned with every breath. The street darkened, it deepened, it turned, and then it arrived. It did not crash, it did not splash. It consumed. The wave rounded the corner, still rising. Some things are made to contain. but not everything inside them agrees to stay. She met him in Lisbon. Not in a bar, at a landmark, but in a forgiving hour when the city softened into gold. River caught the light and held it. Tiles beneath her feet still warm from the day, the air easing into something almost kind. He was leaning against the stone railing as if it had been placed there deliberately, waiting. When he looked at her, it was not with curiosity, but with a quiet, settled certainty, as though he had already decided something about her, and simply arrived and collected it. His name was Adrian. He offered it easily, like a coin passed across a counter, casual and clean, without weight or hesitation. She never saw it written. He paid in cash. Confident, controlled, he moved through language the way other men move through doorways, without pause and without permission. Portuguese just poured from him. French softened at the edges. English bent just enough to charm. Waiters nodded. Drivers deferred. Hotel clerks handed over keys without prolonged inspection. She assumed documents had been shown, her passports pressed across polished counters. Identities confirmed in quiet, official ways, but she had never watched it happen. Within a month, they were in Morocco. Within 3, Kenya. The world unfolded quickly, generously, as though it had been waiting for them, specifically. On safari at dawn, with lions shifting through the tall grass like something half remembered. He stood behind her and said quietly, "As long as you keep moving, nothing can trap you." Movement felt like oxygen. Stillness felt suspect. There were photographs, hundreds, in her saffron sunsets, her laughing in alpine wind, her shadowed stretched long across snow. He was always there, just outside the frame, blurred by motion or holding the camera, or always holding the camera. They carved down Swiss Alps in clean white arcs, powder lifting around their knees like breath made visible. He would surge ahead and then slow deliberately, gliding backward to face her, laughing as she struggled to match his pace. At the base, he waited, goggles pushed up, cheeks flushed, arms open as if he had conquered the mountain safely for her arrival. Later, they drifted across to Bora Bora in water so clear it felt imagined. Coral gardens unfolding beneath them in slow, silent color. He steadied her kayak when the current shifted. His fingers light, precise, always exactly where they needed to be. When they paused, the world reduced itself to blue and breath, and the distant hush of reef against shore. He chose the destination. He traced the maps. He carried the compass. He never unpacked fully. Never left clothes folded in drawers. He never signed a receipt where she could see his name. Roots, he told her once with a quiet smile, are beautiful traps. She had thought that sounded wise. The Amazon was his idea. Real adventure, he said, with a grin that suggested everything before had merely been rehearsal. They flew to Manaus, heat rising in the runway and soft shimmering waves. At the dock, he handled everything. Quick words, folded bills, easy smiles. The guide who met them was older, quiet, pale scar cutting across his chin. His eyes lingered longer than necessary. The boat, it was narrow. It was low to the water. The engine coughed and then settled in a silent vibration beneath their feet as the river parted reluctantly around them. Hours passed. Wide channels narrowed into silent corridors. The canopy stitched itself overhead until the sky became something fractured and distant and reduced to scattered light. Adrian pointed out nothing. He simply watched, as though confirming something. At the final bend, where the guide would leave them to continue on foot, the boat eased against a muddy bank. "You sure?" the guide asked. Not him, but to her. His eyes flicked past her shoulder, just confused, but considering. She laughed slightly, goes, "He knows the forest." The guide studied her face for a moment longer than comfort allowed, and then nodded once and stepped back and pushed away from the shore. The jungle closed around them in a careful, tightening fist. Green layered upon green, air thick. It was unmoving, almost aware. Adrian walked ahead with his pack secured against his back. Compass, phone, water, food, direction, everything carried easily, everything accounted for. He never checked the needle, never questioned a turn. He moved as though the path revealed itself to him, side by side, step by step, without doubt, without deviation. By midday, they reached a clearing no larger than a small room. Light flickered in thin, trembling strands, barely touching the ground before disappearing again. "I need a minute," she said. "Of course." His voice was close, it was calm, it was certain. He stepped forward into the denser growth, and one hand was just parting the leaves. The pack remained visible for a moment, solid, present, real. She bent down to retie her laces. 10 seconds, perhaps 12. When she stood, that clearing was empty. Not disturbed, not broken, not wrong in any way that she could immediately name. Just empty. No retreating footsteps, no distant branches, no sound of someone moving away too quickly to be seen. The jungle held itself together, composed and complete, as though nothing that had ever occupied that space in front of her at all. "Adrian?" Her voice dissolved before it could travel. Insects continued their steady rhythm. Somewhere high above, something adjusted its weight above the branches. She stepped right to where he'd been standing. The soil did not clearly remember him. The leaves bore no obvious mark. The light even seemed unchanged. He had the compass. He had the phone. He had the water, the food. Direction itself seemed to have gone with him. She turned slowly, but every direction was identical. Green walls without edge or interruption. Her breath shortened, it tightened. She thought of the guide, of the way his eyes had moved past her, searching for something he could not quite confirm. Had he answered Adrian directly? Had she heard two voices? Or had she simply just filled the silence? There had been photographs, she was certain of that, yet when she tried to recall one, just one, with his face centered and still, she only found fragments. Horizons, motions, her own smile, open sky, always open sky. A branch snapped somewhere deep in the jungle. Hope surged before reason could restrain it. Leaves shifted, a shadow moved between the trees, too distant, too brief to hold. Wait. But the movement vanished as quickly as it formed. The forest resumed to its quiet, measured breathing. She stood alone, without direction, without witness, without the quiet assurance of someone else choosing the path forward. For the first time, she allowed herself to considering something she had refused. Across continents, across coastlines, and carefully curated moments. Whether she had spent months traveling the world with a man, or had been following something that only ever existed just beyond her reach. Some paths don't lead somewhere. They remove where you've been. By the time you notice, direction has already been decided. There are certain habits we take for granted. Blinking, for example. A small surrender of sight. A brief, involuntary darkness. We do it thousands of times a day without ceremony, without thought, without awareness. But not everybody does. They started on a Tuesday. No one remembers who interviewed him or who walked him to his cubicle or when exactly he had arrived. But by mid-morning, he was seated near the center aisle, already logged in, already working, as though he'd always been there. The office stretched in endless rows of nicotine beige partitions, color of old walls that had been absorbed by years of fluorescent light and never recovered. Monitors sat thick-backed and humming softly. White drop-tile ceilings pressed low against long fluorescent bulbs. Xerox machines lined the perimeter, breathing out copies in repetitive mechanical sighs. The air carried the burnt metallic scent of coffee that had been sitting on its burner since 9:12 a.m. Nothing in that office felt new, but he did. He introduced himself as Daniel, polite and measured, and he smiled easily and maintained eye contact a little too easily. He would later insist it was all just a misunderstanding. In his own words, I do blink, and I am certain of it. I must. I close my eyes when I shower. I close them when I sleep, don't I? By Thursday, someone had joked about it. Does he ever blink? Laughter followed. Daniel laughed too. Right volume, right duration, right pitch. But no one could recall seeing his eyes close. Not during laughter, not during coughs, not even when he yawned. He tried to correct it quietly. In the restroom mirror, breathing the buzzing light, he locked the stall door and stared at himself. Counted 1, 2, 3, and he closed them deliberately, held them, and then opened them again. It felt manual, like flipping a switch with careful fingers. Sometimes, he explained later, there were delays. In his own words, a word would arrive twice or not at all. There's a pause, but only on the inside, and he responds anyways. It became a quiet office experiment. A dropped stapler near his foot, a sudden clap behind his chair, a conversation stretched just 1 second too long. He startled when appropriate. He spoke when expected and tilted his head in measured empathy. A coworker confided in him about her divorce. She spoke for 12 uninterrupted minutes. He listened without shifting, without blinking. When she finished, she said softly, "You're very present." "I'm trying to be," he replied. She did not sit across from him again. So he researched it. How often should humans blink? 14 to 17 times a minute. He attempted the rhythm at his desk. Close, open, close, open. His supervisor paused mid-sentence. "You feeling all right?" "Yes," he said calmly. She held his gaze and he held hers, but she looked away first. Security footage was reviewed the following Monday, just curiosity, just to settle nerves. Timestamp flickered in grainy white digits. 8:59 a.m. Daniel was already seated and already working. They rewound. There was no entrance and no hallway crossing, no elevator arrival. At 5:02 p.m., the lights shut off automatically. Employees gathered their coats, the cubicles emptied, and the footage jumped. 8:59 a.m. Daniel was already there again, so Human Resources called him in. The office was small. It was windowless, one file resting on a metal desk. "Daniel," the woman began carefully, "we're missing some onboarding information. We're missing your birth certificate, your social security confirmation, and prior employment verification." He smiled and said he must have just forgotten. She did not smile back and said, "We can't seem to locate it." And he brushed it off, said, "That's all right. I'm here." And then there was a long pause, and she leaned forward. She said, "Daniel, when was the last time you blinked?" He laughed and said, "I'm blinking now." She watched him, and he did not. In his own words, "I remember being a child. It was a dog. It was brown. I think I fell once. I scraped my knee. There was blood. My mother lifted me. I remembered birthdays and candles and learning to drive. I remember all of it, but I do not remember dreaming. I do not remember waking. There's only continuation. Perhaps I am efficient." By Friday, people had angled their monitors away from him. They spoke from the side, avoided direct seating. His performance metrics were flawless. No errors, no sick days, no variance. The fluorescent lights hummed, the Xerox machines rested, nicotine beige cubicles stood in quiet formation. And Daniel remained, unblinking. Late one evening, long after the others had left, he sat alone beneath the white glare. The office felt larger without voices. The coffee scent had soured. He opened a blank document. The cursor blinked. blink, blink, blink. He typed, blink. He closed his eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When he opened them, the office was exactly as it had been. It was empty. It was still. The fluorescent hum was steady. He exhaled. Of course it was empty. It was late. Then he looked at his screen, and the cursor kept blinking, measured, consistent. Something felt misaligned. He glanced toward the aisle, and for a moment, he was certain someone had been standing there, not moving, not breathing, just watching. He blinked. The aisle was empty. Blinked again. Overhead lights just hummed softly, adjusted, not flickered, adjusted as though responding. In his own words again, sometimes I think the room waits, not for me to speak, for me to close my eyes. So he sat very still. The cursor continued blinking. He would not look away. He would not be the first to break eye contact. He would be the first to blink. So he thought. Lights hummed above him, unchanging, observant. After a long moment, he realized he could no longer remember whether he had just blinked or whether the room had. We close our eyes without ceremony, confident that darkness is passive, harmless. Stillness, however, has a reputation it has never earned, and silence is rarely sincere. Routine is a powerful disguise, especially when it feels natural. And what feels natural is rarely questioned. We draw curtains for many reasons. Privacy or shade or sleep. Sometimes, if we're being honest, we draw them to convince ourselves that what we cannot see us. Light persuades and darkness agrees until it doesn't. Until that quiet, compliant darkness becomes something watchful and perceptive. The box arrived on a Wednesday. No return address, no company logo, no delivery notification. Just a plain, unmarked parcel resting against the front door. Doorbell camera recorded nothing. No footsteps, no van, no knock. It was simply there, as though it had been placed with a quiet and calculated care. Ellen had assumed Mark had ordered them. Mark assumed Ellen had mentioned it in passing. And so they opened the box together at the kitchen counter. Inside, blackout curtains. Thick charcoal fabric, weighted hem, dense, deliberate design meant to devour daylight. Receipt was tucked inside, paid in full, but no purchaser was listed. I laughed about it, light and loose and lingering. Maybe the universe is tired of that street lamp too. They installed them that evening with casual coordination and quiet curiosity. First night was perfect. The bedroom vanished when the fabric met. Not dim, not dusky, just gone, clean, complete, convincingly contained. They slept until 7:43 a.m., rested, restored, undisturbed. Ellen smiled into the dark. It was like the world was switched off. Second night, it stretched deeper. They woke at 9:12. Sunlight waited politely when they parted the curtain. Late, but logical. Soft, but still believable. They blamed exhaustion and simple, sensible sufficiency. By Saturday, it was 10:38 a.m., according to the phone. The bedroom remained dense and deliberate. Ellen drew the curtain aside, and morning entered, but faintly, filtered and faltering, as though the sun had reconsidered its commitment. Storm, she asked, maybe? Day passed without incident. It was quiet, conveniently forgettable. By Sunday, morning did not arrive at all. Mark woke first at 7:43 a.m. and the dark felt heavier now. Not absence, but occupation. It was like a slow, settled presence pressing persistently into place. He stood, he walked to the window and pulled the curtain wide, but there was nothing. No sky, no street, no neighboring rooflines, no depth. Only black. Not night, because night breathes, night bends, night borrows distance. This was flat, it was featureless and final. Blank, breathless boundary without horizon or hint of anything beyond it. He leaned closer. The glass reflected nothing, not even him. No shape, no shadow, no subtle suggestion of self. Ellen rose slowly. What is it? He stepped aside and she looked, did not speak. They moved to the hallway window, the kitchen, bathroom. Each one, each pane, each angle, black. They began moving faster now. Bedroom, the hall, the guest room, the living room. Curtains were pulled, blinds snapped upwards, locks checked, handles rattled. Kitchen window was black, the front sitting room was black, the upstairs landing was black. No horizon, there was no outline, no flicker of passing car light. Their breathing grew louder in the distance. It was sharp and shadow, steadily slipping out of sync. Maybe it's smoke, but there's no smell. Could be a construction tarp, but on all sides? No, something was wrong. They stopped in the living room. Television was on. Morning anchors were laughing brightly. Their polished presence was painfully normal. Behind them, sunlight poured confidently through the studio glass. Ellen muted it immediately. The quiet felt swollen, stretched, and suffocatingly still. Open the door, she said. Mark walked to the front entrance, his hand on the knob, cold metal beneath his palm. The window at least offered boundary. Glass meant separation and surface and safe, structured containment. Door was more like transition. And exiting now felt irreversible, immediate, and impossibly immense. If it opened to that, the same seamless swallowing black, there would be no barrier left, no frame, no pain, no illusion of division. He turned the knob halfway and paused. Silence pressed closer, not louder, not violent, just nearer and narrower and more intimately involved. He released it and said, "Not yet." They returned to the bedroom. Curtains were still wide open. The black pressed against the glass like ink against paper, flat and firm and faintly responsive. For a moment, Mark thought he saw something shift, not outside, but within, a subtle, silent recalibration, as though something adjusted when he leaned closer and settled when he stepped back. He closed the curtains immediately. The room softened. It was manageable dark, owned dark. It's familiar, fabricated, falsely friendly darkness. Ellen sat on the bed. "We'll try again tomorrow," she said. But tomorrow did not differ. 7:43 a.m. It was dark. Phones updated. Messages arrived. The world insisted it continued, and consistent, connected, convincingly unchanged. Inside, the refrigerator hummed, the air moved through the vents, pipes ticked faintly in the walls, and everything functioned. Everything followed its familiar functional pattern. Only outside had just been withdrawn. That evening, they left the curtains open. They did not mention the door again, and they slept lightly, loosely, and uneasily. We close things for comfort, for quiet, for control. But every barrier bargains, and every boundary borrows. Once the light is gone, and truly gone, you must decide whether you are protected or preserved. Some boundaries feel certain, solid and structured and settled into place. Something you can close and contain and control, and trust to remain that way. But not everything on the other side agrees to stay there, and not everything that's kept stays quiet. Now, there is a rhythm to this, a measured movement, a careful cadence that builds with each story, with each shift and each subtle suggestion. There is something like this, and it benefits from a moment of distance. So take it, tend to your glass, refill, refresh, and reconsider. Settle, stretch, step away if something nearby has been quietly calling your attention. Check on whatever waits just outside your immediate awareness. But don't drift too far. There's still more to uncover, more to consider, more to connect. And the second half rarely feels the same as the first. We will continue shortly.